What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to show you my ultimate Vex mobbing build. This build uses the rainbow shotgun with the fireworks shield from Splash Zone and synergizes with Vex's ability to buff status effects and critical hits on status effects. So essentially we're building up crits in order to ricochet status effects to multiple mobs at once, and then with the fireworks shield we'll send homing missiles through the arena at other targets. It essentially lets you kill multiple ads at once, and I recommend this for drill sites and open world, as it's not that great on single target, which I'm going to talk about more here in the pros and cons in a second. Alright, for our pros and cons, first for our pros, between the ricochets and the status effects, you're essentially killing everything in a close group all at the same time. So not just the one you're shooting at, but multiple enemies around you. There's easy second wins if there's things around, and even if there aren't, if they've been hit with one of the ricochets, the status effects can take them out, which is good because you have to be pretty close in this build because of the rainbow shotgun. We'll talk about that in a second with the cons. But you also have multiple elements with each shot, and then on top of that you'll have the critical hits proccing bleeds, which I know there's talks of the bleeds being nerfed, but as of right now, Grant Timmons put out a thing on X, I'll show it on screen, where he talks about that buffs are the first priority and then nerfs will come in second. So how long that means that we have bleeds and the crit knife, I don't know, but this is a building block, so we'll see what they do when they nerf it, and then I'll update this build in the future to what it needs to be. And then later I'll show with the multiple elements it helps take out any enemy, and I'll show that on the rainbow vomit with the chart from Max Roll. Also, because of our shield using the fireworks shield, it's just adding another element to the process. Because of missile swarm, you're able to kill an enemy, send out missiles, and then that can proc status effects as well. For our cons, one of the things that might be an issue is that if you go down, you might have killed all your ads before that going down if you are standing in a puddle or something, so that's an issue. Single target is considerably weaker until bleed kicks in. It can still be done, but sometimes it just takes that extra bleed drop or status effect to do the damage you need. And then also the shotgun pellets have drop on them, which I'll show you here. You can see they're dropping through the sky, so it makes it a little more difficult to aim them at the crit spots, which is why we're buffing up crit chance in our build, and it makes it more difficult from a distance, and that's an issue with the specters, which I'll show you when we talk about in the augments. Alright, going over our skill tree, we're starting out in the green skill tree. We're going to put 5 into Leeching Attunement. While attuned to kinetic, she gains lifesteal and increases reload speed. The Looming Rainbow Shotgun, or Rainbow Vomit Shotgun, which is what I'm using, is one that is, even though it shoots 3 different elements, it's technically a kinetic weapon, so you will always be attuned to kinetic. So this is our only form of survivability in this build, so that's a good 5 points that you need to put in there. For the next 5, we're going into Bloodletter. Like I said, they recognize the fact that bleed is somewhat broken in this, but until then we're going to use it, and then when they update and nerf bleed, if they do, then we'll go through and redo these 5 points if we need to. But these 5 are going to give us critical hits, have a chance to apply bleed, causing status effect damage. Because we're going to put another 5 into target pressions, Vex gun damage gains critical hit chance against any part of the enemy, which is 15%. As you're shooting the Rainbow Vomit Shotgun, it's got 6 pellets, which means each of those 6 has an extra 15% chance. Plus you have splash damage with the Rainbow Vomit, so you're going to do a chance at critical hitting on all of these shots, which then has a chance to proc our kinetic status effect bleeds, which is huge. And a lot of damage is done via bleeds, and a lot more than the rest of the status effects. And then lastly, we're just going 5 into material components, which gains increased kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage. I'm going to talk about the augments and the action skill after I go over the blue tree. Now for Vex's blue tree, we're going 5 into Cold Iron because we just get a flat 15% gun damage boost. And then our minions have an extra 30%, which is huge if you're using the Spectres. We're then going to go 5 points into Portents of Suffering, so gaining increased status effect damage. That's 42% because I have an extra from the class mod. Now, if we could get a class mod that has more than just a +1 for this, that would be a huge stat, but I don't. because I've taken the opportunity to put more into my crit chance, which I'll talk about here in a second. But if you have a mod that does more status effect damage, that's a lot of extra damage for you and a lot of help, since each time these shots hit, they have a chance to proc status effect. Each time they ricochet, they have a chance to proc status effect. Each time you kill something and you send out missiles, those have a chance to do status effect. Every time you use your action skill, you're going to be doing status effect damage. So anytime you can increase this, that's a big bonus. Next is going to go 5 into Grave Fiends. This is just increasing our damage 12.5% per stack, which up to 3 stacks. This, even though it's a kill skill, this is a mobbing build I recommend for mobbing, and you'll always have these available to you throughout the fight. Next, we're going to go 4 into Grave Assault. Kill skill, Vex and minions gain increased fire rate for a duration. So we're getting 1.5% per stack for 10 seconds up to 3 stacks. Even though the fire rate increase is less on this than if you were to use something like Drink Full, the duration is twice as long, which is why I went with this one, because if you're mobbing, sometimes you'll have times where they run away from you and you'll kill them before you can get Drink Full up. But if you have Grave Assault active, it lasts longer, which means you have a higher chance of keeping your fire rate up. And then on top of that, you don't have to build your fire rate when the bosses come out. You already have this from killing the mobs around it. The next 5 we're going to go into Prismatic Ichor. When Vex or minions apply a status effect, I'll apply another random elemental status effect. As I said, we're applying so many status effects that we just want to increase our chances of having more and more status effects. It only lasts for 2 seconds, but its damage is 150% of the initial status effect, which allows us to do a lot of extra damage real quickly. Lastly, we're going 5 into Keen Suffering. We're going to get a status effect damage gains a chance to critically hit. Now, I have a +4 on this, which I think is big. I had more in the status effect at the time when I first started building this, and then I got this one does higher critical hit chance. I felt like I did more damage quicker, because as you have the status effects active, 1 in every 3 is going to hit as a critical hit. And because you'll have so many status effects, you're hitting every second, essentially hitting a status effect critical hit. Now for our action skills, I personally like to use Incarnate and use that with Grave Harvest. And the reason I like to use it, when you have a lot of mobs around you, the best thing you can do is hit Incarnate. It automatically refills your health, automatically explodes around the enemy, so it's starting to hit them. And then you have the Augment Grave Harvest, which anytime you kill an enemy drops a soul orb, which does status effect damage to the enemies around them. So what you'll see is the soul orb will hit, it'll have a purple ring around it that is doing status effect damage to the enemies. Now also, the huge benefit with this is if you're running low on health, you can run over an orb to gain back health and action skill duration. If you're running out of your action skill, you can then run over the orb. Now you can also use the Dead Ringer action skill with the Heirloom Capstone, and once again, the reason we do this is because the Spectres gain a copy of your gun for 10 seconds. So throw out a Spectre in the middle of a group, it'll start doing status effect damage because we're using the Augment Wither, so it'll do status effect damage to that group, but then it'll also have a copy of your Rainbow Vomit shotgun, so it's now being able to do critical hits as well to proc bleeds, as well as doing the status effect using the Rainbow Vomit in general. The only issue, and the reason I don't prefer using this, I thought I did way more damage when I used this Spectre version, and I thought I did a lot faster clears on drill sites. The only issue is that if you put a Spectre far enough away to actually survive, Spectres don't know how to aim the Rainbow Vomit in a way that it'll get enough distance. So what you'll end up having is they're shooting the arcing shots, and the shots are landing and hitting the ground before they hit the enemies. Where it is effective, you have to actually put it right in the middle of a fight, so it has a couple seconds to get a couple shots off before it's killed, if it isn't killed automatically from something like an exploding suicide bomber. But you have the option to use this. It works really well. I really liked it. I just thought it was least effective because you had to constantly put them out, let them die, or constantly have them come out and die, and then that was just taxing when I can just hit incarnate and have a status effect damage more consistently. All right, our first equipment is going to be the Rainbow Vomit Shotgun. Now, like I said, I'm using this because it shoots in 3 different elements, but you're attuned to kinetic. So that kinetic gives you lifesteal, and then the 3 different elements means you can stack status effects on top of each other. I chose Rainbow, the color spray, cryo, incendiary, and radiation. Here's the chart on screen that I was talking about with the different damage numbers and different damage types for the type of enemy you're going against. This one I just felt had the best potential, and then I tried a couple others. I just like this one the best. You can acquire this from up here in the Carcadia district at Leader Willem, and then in order to get Leader Willem as an option, you have to go to Carcadia. There will be a side mission right around this area called Enter the Electee. You have to do Enter the Electee Part 1. Part 2, then you pick up the missions Council Divided, Traitor Within, the Mole's Gambit. You have to do those 5 in order to unlock them. And then when you're done with those 5, you need to return here to Carcadia in order to turn in the mission. And then you can go back to Leader Willem and use Moxie's Big Encore machine. If you try to re-enter the arena after the fight, there is no Moxie's Big Encore. You have to turn it in order to get it complete. The next piece of equipment we're using is the Armor Shield Barrage Weatherproof Fireworks, or Fireworks Shield. The reason I'm using this one is because of the augment on it for Missile Swarm. So on Armor Segment Break, launches 3 missiles, each dealing damage, and then also bundled on kill spawns missiles that home in on enemy targets and deal damage as well. This one is corrosive, and the damage that the missiles will deal is based on the damage that you're resistant to. So you can pick or choose which one you want, assuming you can find this shield in different resistances. This is from everyone's favorite farm site in Splash Zone. So if you don't have one already, come over here in the Fade Fields right off the main starting point and spawn Splash Zone. The next piece of equipment is the large triple bypass. I think this is just the best in the game right now. It has 3 charges and then a 30% chance to recharge or replenish charge on kill. And then also I have the 1 fire rate. I like this. Just the Rainbow Vomit Shotgun is slow, and we're just going to want to stack as much fire rate as we can because that will help us with our DPS in general. You can get the triple bypass rep kit from the Claim Auger Mine by farming the back hive. This is the auger mine that is right next to Zadra's backup plan fast travel station. So if you don't have that, that's where you can find it and farm the back hive. This next piece of equipment is the Bountiful Waterfall, or the Waterfall Grenade. I personally love this grenade because of the fact that this is my mobbing build, and there's a huge chance of having the vile creatures running around. This grenade does really well with the vile creatures if you've never used it. So go ahead and farm this one. The waterfall grenade comes from Bio Bulkhead. You'll find the entrance right here in the Fade Fields in Dissected Plateau. That's where you need to farm him in order to get this waterfall grenade. The last thing you want to get is one of these Alchemist Siren class mods. I have the Critical Hit Alchemist that you can see on the left is the one I'm using. Potent Alchemist is the one I started with. Neither of these have good stats. I've been farming for a better one for a long time, haven't found one. If you can find something that has that boosts your shotgun stats, your status effect damage, status effect chance, any of those would help this build immensely. I went with the Critical Alchemist. I felt like it gave me the best because it adds a +4 into Keen Suffering, which is increasing my status effect chance to critically hit up to 36%. And because of that, that's why I went with Critical Alchemist. The green skill that you see on both of these class mods is just base elemental damage, which is in the skill in the green tree right here, which is Grave Elements, and it just gains elemental damage for a duration on kills. This isn't really a huge bonus because it's only affecting the initial shots from your Rainbow Vomit Shotgun, not affecting the status effects. So if you find a class mod that has either of the 2 blue skills, those are going to boost your status effects the best. Lastly, for gear is going to be using a Jacob's licensed part This one was my ideal because it has increased gun damage, increased fire rate, increased shotgun splash damage, and then it's a Jacobs license, which gives 20% chance to critical hits. This one just was perfect for me to make this build. It's actually really what I started with when I was looking at making this build. You can also use something, one of these Jacobs ones does 40% chance to ricochet non-critical hits, but this one just didn't have the extra stat bonuses. I haven't found the legendary enhancement yet for Jacobs. I would love to try that one, but if you have it, give that a shot. Overall, the best thing I found was just this because of gun damage, gunfire rate, splash damage, all increased, and then also having a 20% chance to critically hit, which then is a chance to ricochet, which then is another chance to cause your status effects on not only the enemy you're shooting at, but any of the enemies it ricochets to. And then those all have critical hit chances from your skill tree with their status effects. So it's a way of just doing mass damage to multiple things at once without having to shoot and aim at every single one of them. Next, we'll go over our specializations. So the first one I'm using is in the killer tree. Critical hits grant increased status effect application chance. Again, we've talked about all the critical hit chance we have with the Rainbow Vomit. Now we're just increasing our chance to get status effects. So overall, just more damage. Also, kill skill, killing an enemy with a critical hit causes them to explode. So that's just nice to have because we have the option to explode enemies. And we're doing critical hits consistently with our Rainbow Vomit. The last one, riddle you this. Excuse me, the next one is riddle you this. Whenever you deal gun damage, gain a stack of gun damage. So up to 50% gun damage with this specialization. And then the last perk, we're going to use excess gun damage is stored and added to your next gunshot. This is just nice. You never know whether something's going to die from status effects or from the actual gun itself. So it's just boosting your next shot if you do some extra gun damage on the final shot. Last thing I'll talk about in gear is going to be our firmware. So I'm running 3 Deadeye, get that gain 30% accuracy, gun critical hit damage by 25%, and then every critical hit grants 15% critical hit damage stack up to 5 stacks for 10 seconds. Because the Rainbow Vomit is shooting 6 pellets at a time, we're then having each of those have a chance to critical hit. When those ricochet, they have a chance to critically hit. So we have that gaining critical hit damage. We have the chance of gaining critical hit to any part of the body by 15% based on our skills. Then we have an additional 20% chance to critically hit with our enhancement. So it just made sense to boost that critical hit damage. Even though this doesn't affect our status effects, it does boost our initial shots plus our ricochets. The next two I put into airstrike, splash radius, splash damage. The Rainbow Vomit does splash damage. You can see here. It does an extra 96% crit damage for mine, but then the splash radius is 50 centimeters. So it does splash damage. We're just increasing the overall damage for our Rainbow Vomit. Alright, and that's it for my build. This the hardest part of farming this build was honestly the Deadeye firmware, which I kept stats on during that firmware grind. So if you want to see more data on that, I'll have a video linked in the description down below. On your way there, don't forget to subscribe for more Borderlands 4 content, and I'll see you next time. See ya!